Good evening, and welcome to the Connecticut Department of Transportation's Public Information Meeting for Accessible Pedestrian Signal Upgrades. This project intends to upgrade pedestrian elements at existing traffic signals throughout eastern Connecticut to match current practice. My name is Claire Sylvester, and I am the project engineer for this project at the Connecticut Department of Transportation. I want to thank everyone for taking the time to join us. We hope our presentation will be informative, and we hope to answer your questions and concerns during tonight's question and answer session. By the end of tonight's meeting, we hope you will have a better understanding on the importance and benefit of this safety improvement. Next slide. If you are viewing this presentation on Zoom, you have the option to view captions or subtitles for this presentation. To turn on this feature, select the CC button at the lower right corner of your screen to turn on the captioning. Then choose the language by selecting the settings upward chevron next to the CC button. Select speaking language and select the desired one. Next slide. For the meeting overview, we started with some housekeeping, and we'll have a few more housekeeping items before I introduce the project team. I'll talk about the purpose of the meeting, and we will give an overview of the project followed by some of the coordination efforts that we've started and will be continuing as the project progresses. We'll talk about project costs and schedule and give you an idea of what the next steps are and the timeline. At the end, we will have our question and answer session where you can let us know your questions or comments and we can respond to them. Next slide. At the end of the presentation tonight, there will be a question and answer session through the Zoom Q&A. You can also ask a question by 1. Sending an email to dot project0172-0541 or by leaving a voicemail at 860-594-2020. The comment period will be open through Monday, June 15th, and you can send an email or leave a voicemail until that date. We also have a project webpage which contains this information on how to provide comments or ask questions. A recording of tonight's presentation, including the live Q&A, will be stored at portal.ct.gov/ctdotvpim archive. Next slide. Our presentation will be approximately 20 minutes, and once it is completed, we will host a live question and answer session. As I mentioned, you will have 3 ways of communicating with us during the live Q&A. One method is to ask your question directly into the Zoom event. You can ask a question by clicking on the Q&A icon at the bottom of the meeting page and type in your question in the pop-up window. If you are an audio-only participant, dial *9 to raise and lower your hand. Next slide. Title 6, Your Civil Rights. No person shall, on the basis of race, color, or national origin, be excluded from participation or subject to discrimination in the development of this project. We ask and would greatly appreciate it if you can fill out the very brief feedback survey at the end of the presentation that is located on the project's webpage. The survey will help CTDOT improve these public meetings going forward. Again, the project webpage is portal.ct.gov/dot/projects/dot Eastern CT 0172-0541. Next slide. There is also a civil rights flyer that's available. The website for that is portal.ct.gov/equity/title-VI. This slide is the Title VI notice to the public that says any person who believes she or he has been aggrieved by any unlawful discriminatory practice under Title VI may file a complaint with the Connecticut Department of Transportation. For more information on the Connecticut DOT Civil Rights Program and the procedures to file a complaint, you can contact the CTDOT Title VI Coordinator at 860-594-2169, Telecommunications Relay Services 711, or email deborah.goss@ct.gov. Next slide. This is the same civil rights flyer as before, but in Spanish. I will pause here for a moment for people to read. Next slide. I would now like to introduce the project team. Matthew Bloom is our Division Chief of Traffic Engineering. Natasha Fatu is the State Safety Engineer for the State of Connecticut and the Principal Engineer of CTDOT's Traffic Safety Unit. Balazs Zoke is a Supervising Engineer at CTDOT's Traffic Safety Unit and is the Project Manager. I am Claire Sylvester, a Transportation Engineer at CTDOT's Traffic Safety Unit and also the lead project engineer for this project. Colleen Byrne is a consultant engineer for Tie and Bond and will be the primary presenter for the remainder of tonight's meeting. Malcolm Thomas is representing the CTDOT's Right-of-Way group. Gina Muzinski and Jack Lowe are consultant engineers for Fuss and O'Neill, our consultant liaison for the project, and will be moderating this presentation and Q&A. Next slide. The purpose of the meeting is to provide an introduction to CTDOT's Accessible Pedestrian Signal Upgrade Project. We will provide a project overview and status, obtain public input, and respond to public comment via the live Q&A session. Next slide. APS upgrade projects. The state owns and maintains 2,801 traffic signals. We are upgrading pedestrian signal components to match current state practice. The goal is to enhance pedestrian accessibility to address the safety of vulnerable road users. And the factors that were considered for site location were existing pedestrian treatment, age of equipment, and pedestrian crash history. And now I'll hand it off to Colleen for the next section.
Thanks, Claire. Good evening, everyone. My name is Colleen Byrne. I'm a consultant engineer with Tie and Bond working with the CTDOT on this project. So I'll be walking through the project overview, starting with locations included in this project, and then talking about the types of improvements that are being proposed. So this project includes accessible pedestrian signal upgrades at 21 signalized intersections across District 2, which is located in the eastern portion of the state of Connecticut. These locations are distributed across several municipalities, including Brooklyn, Clinton, East Hampton, East Lyme, Groton, Mansfield, Norwich, Preston, Putnam, Stonington, Waterford, and Wyndham. Most towns have 1 or 2 locations within the project, while Groton and Wyndham each include 3 locations. So the map shown here provides a regional view of where these improvements are being proposed. And these locations were selected by CTDOT based on the system needs and where upgrades would provide the greatest benefit. So a little bit about the purpose and need of this project. So the purpose of the project is to bring pedestrian facilities at these intersections into compliance with current MUTCD and ADA requirements. So this includes installation of accessible pedestrian signal push buttons, countdown pedestrian signal heads, updated sidewalk ramps, and where appropriate, implementing leading pedestrian intervals, which we call LPI. These improvements provide clearer information to the pedestrians about when it's safe to cross and improve the overall usability of the crossings. This also supports safer travel for all road users by encouraging more predictable interactions between pedestrians and vehicles. From a safety standpoint, studies have shown that countdown pedestrian signals can reduce pedestrian crashes by 25%, and leading pedestrian intervals, or LPIs, can reduce crashes by up to 60%. In terms of the proposed pedestrian accommodations at each location, the project may include several types of improvements. As shown in the graphics on this slide, these include updated regulatory signage, pedestrian countdown signals with accessible push buttons that provide both audible and tactile feedback, and new or improved crosswalks. So we are also upgrading sidewalk curb ramps to meet ADA standards, and where needed, adding short sections of sidewalk to better connect sidewalk ramps. Overall, these improvements are intended to create a more continuous, accessible, and user-friendly path for pedestrians throughout each intersection. Talking a little bit more about concurrent pedestrian phasing. So this slide includes what we call concurrent pedestrian phasing, and shown in the graphic, pedestrians cross in the same direction as parallel vehicle traffic that has the green signalized indication. So one of the key benefits of the proposed upgrades is the addition of dedicated pedestrian signal indications, which clearly show when it is appropriate to cross. At many existing locations, pedestrians have to rely on the vehicle signals or less clear indications, which can lead to confusion for both drivers and pedestrians. So providing a dedicated pedestrian signal helps reduce that uncertainty for both pedestrians and drivers, which improves overall compliance and makes the crossings more intuitive for all of our road users. And then going back to that LPI, or that leading pedestrian interval that I mentioned earlier. So in addition to the concurrent phasing, some locations will include LPI. As illustrated here, the leading pedestrian interval provides pedestrians with a head start, which is typically 7 seconds, before the vehicles then receive a green indication. So this gives the pedestrians a head start to enter the crosswalk and become more visible to drivers, particularly those drivers making turning movements before vehicles begin moving or receive the green indication. After that initial interval, the pedestrian phase will continue concurrently with vehicle traffic. And as I mentioned earlier, LPI treatment has been shown to significantly improve safety by reducing conflicts between pedestrians and turning vehicles, with as much as a 60% reduction in crashes. Touching a little bit on some project coordination efforts. Coordination with the municipalities began early on in the project, with notification letters being sent to each town in September of 25. We're holding this virtual public information meeting tonight as part of that outreach process to gather input from the public. Each municipality also received a notification letter for tonight's meeting. In addition, we'll be coordinating with the utility companies. So this will include a virtual coordination meeting, as well as field meetings at each of the project locations over the course of this summer. So these efforts help us identify any potential conflicts early on in the process and ensure that all of the stakeholders are aligned as we continue advancing the designs. And then touching on right-of-way a little bit. So any potential right-of-way impacts associated with the project. At some locations, traffic easements may be required to accommodate the proposed improvements, such as sidewalk ramps or signal equipment. The right-of-way process is currently ongoing as we are early on in the design process, and the total number of impacts is still being finalized. However, I did want to mention that 2 locations within the project were identified as being adjacent to historic properties. This includes sites in both East Lyme and Groton. For these locations, the Office of Environmental Planning will review any potential impacts as part of the upcoming preliminary design review process. This project will follow the standard CT-DOT right-of-way process for any required acquisitions or easements. And with that, at this point, I'll turn it over to Malcolm Thomas from CT-DOT's Rights-of-Way office to provide additional detail on the right-of-way process.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Malcolm Thomas. I'm an assistant project coordinator with the department's Rights-of-Way division. Our office is responsible for acquiring necessary property and property rights for transportation projects throughout the state. I'm here to provide a brief overview of our acquisition process. As mentioned, this project will require the acquisition of property rights. Specific property impacts for this project are still being finalized and may change as the design progresses. Any property rights will be acquired in accordance to CT General State Statute Sections 13A 73 and 13A 98E, as well as the Uniform Act. It's important to note that the state will only acquire property rights that are deemed necessary for the project. Once all impacts for the project have been determined, the right-of-way acquisition process will begin. Impacted property owners will receive a formal letter of intent to acquire, along with a property map which depicts the exact property rights to be acquired as shown on the screen. Impacted property owners our office will determine the fair market value for the property rights, which will be used to establish an offer of just compensation. The offer will be sent to the property owner in writing, and a right-of-way agent will be available to meet with the impacted property owners to explain the project and go over the impacts to their property, as well as explain the state's offer. Property owners typically have 30 days to consider the state's offer and enter into negotiations. Once an agreement is reached, the department will prepare all necessary paperwork to record the conveyance documents on the property and property map on the town land records. In the event that agreement cannot be reached, to keep on schedule with the project, the department may acquire the necessary property or property rights through the power of eminent domain, which the state will file a notice of condemnation on in the Superior Court, along with the monetary deposit in the amount of the state's offer. The owners will have 6 months from that date to file appeal if they felt the state's offer was inadequate. Whether or not the owner chooses to appeal, the money will be deposited in the courts and will be available to be withdrawn by the owner at any time. And I will turn it back over to Colleen to continue our presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Malcolm. So just a couple logistic and upcoming items for project cost and design schedule. So the total estimated project cost is approximately $6.9 million, funded with 90% federal funds and 10% state funds. From a schedule standpoint, preliminary design is currently under review, and the project will advance into the semifinal design stage this fall, with final plans anticipated in August of 2027, and the project expected to be advertised for construction in October of 2027, with construction currently anticipated to begin in the spring of 2028. These dates are subject to change as the project progresses, but this reflects the current project schedule. And then just to wrap up with some next steps, looking ahead, the project will continue to advance in terms of design. We'll be incorporating feedback received from this meeting and our other outreach efforts. The design team will continue refining the traffic signal layouts, identifying any right-of-way needs, and coordinating closely with our utility providers. These steps are necessary to prepare the project for construction and ensure that all elements are properly coordinated before implementation. So with that, I'll wrap it up and turn it over to Gina.
Colleen, my name is Gina Musinski. I'm here to help facilitate the question and answer portion of tonight's meeting. In the chat, you'll find a few references for what was reviewed during this presentation, including the project email address and project webpage. I'm going to put them back in the chat again now for reference. Another option is to utilize the Q&A portion, which is available on the Zoom tonight, and we'll be answering these questions live. At this particular moment, I don't see any open questions. However, I'll give everyone a moment to go through and add questions there. Additionally, Claire is checking the project email throughout the meeting, and I will check the phone at the end of the question and answer section. We did get a question, and the question is regarding how long the lights will be holding the red. I'm assuming is where the attendee is referencing for the walk symbol. I'm going to direct that over to Colleen.
Sorry, Gina, can you reiterate the question again?
Yep, it's how long is the red for the crossing?
So I guess referring back to the leading pedestrian interval, as I mentioned earlier, there will be a 7-second leading pedestrian interval, which is when vehicular indications experience an all red um, symbol, followed by our traditional pedestrian walk phase, which runs concurrent with the parallel vehicle operations. I think that answered the question.
I would just add that at this time, I don't believe we are aware of any locations that are directly adjacent to high senior citizen populations. However, if that is a known concern at a location, we can look at timing the crossing time for that slower pace. But we would need to have that identified for that location.
Thank you, Colleen and Claire. It looks like the attendee mentions North Road and Groton. So that's something to add to our list of things to review.
Yes, thank you. We will make note of that location and continue to work with Groton public officials on how we time that crossing.
Are you able to just verify the project email address?
Yes, the project email address is dot project 0172-0541 @ct.gov.
With no further questions on the email, the voicemail, or within the Zoom session, we're going to end this virtual public information meeting. Thank you everyone for your time.